Welcome to Trailblazers. Today I'm here with Lucas from Jito. I'm sure most people watching this know what Jito is, but do you mind giving a quick overview about what you guys do at Jito?
Yeah, we are a Solana infrastructure company. We started the end of 2021, and for the past few years, been focusing on two main core areas. I would say first one's MEV. So today, around like 90-ish% of the Solana network runs the Jito Solana client, and the other part that we focus on is liquid staking. So currently, our largest liquid staking protocol in Solana, Jito Sol.
Awesome. And so recently you guys introduced BAM, the block assembly marketplace.
Yeah.
This is kind of new add-on to validators. Can you kind of talk about kind of what it is, how it works, and kind of why you guys decided to kind of introduce this?
Yeah. So BAM is a kind of a newer proposed transaction processing architecture for Solana, and it combines a few key pieces that we think will result in a much better user experience on Solana. So first one is increased privacy and attribution. So, there's the BAM technology uses trusted execution environments, which are essentially, you can kind of think of them like secure enclaves or like lockboxes inside of processors that keep those contents private from spying eyes. So they're in like Macs and iPhones and like Fitbits and all the server grade processors made in the last few years have them. And you basically get confidentiality with those and privacy. And then you can also examine the code that's running so people will know what is scheduling and like how the network works at a kind of scheduler level. So yeah, basically this will give people more privacy and give users better pricing. And we're pretty excited about it. We're getting pretty close to mainnet here.
Yeah. So can you kind of break down like why you guys kind of thought that people needed it? What were the problems with the network that kind of like leaded up to this solution?
Yeah. So I would say like probably the end of 2024, we were kind of, 2024 and beginning of 2025 was pretty crazy for the Solana network. Just a lot of people trading meme coins, a ton of activity, generating a lot of REV, which is essentially just like people paying fees to transact on the network. And we were kind of figuring out, we have this current system today. How do we really scale it and make the network way better than what it is today? And so there's a few things there that we were kind of aiming for. One is kind of like more predictable experience for transactions. So, we were talking to a lot of traders and a lot of users. Traders just want deterministic inclusion. They want to know how the network works so they can figure out how to trade, essentially. Two is more privacy. There's been some like, given the amount of people trading meme coins on Solana, there's tends to be a little more like sandwiching than you would want. Obviously you want zero, but when there's money on the table like that, people are going to kind of fight to pick it up. And so we wanted like a little more privacy on that angle. And then we are also thinking like, how do we really grow the pie for applications on Solana? And this maybe didn't come originally on like day zero when we were thinking about this, but as the idea kind of evolved a little more in like late 2024, early 2025, we started thinking about like, we get a lot of requests at Jito for a block engine for people to add like, hey, can you add this functionality or add that? And so that idea, like how can we build something that is easy for people to modify, to add features that really benefit the network and users into the software? And that's kind of where the idea of these plugins came in, which I'm sure we'll dive into a little bit later. But I think the one that people tend to focus on a lot, especially now with the success of some of these like trading specific L1s or L2s, is application controlled execution. So can you give apps a little more control over the way that their transactions are ordered so that they can kind of accomplish whatever they want. In the most common cases, like prioritizing market makers over takers so that you can provide deeper liquidity and tighter spreads.
Yeah, that's been kind of a big thing with Hyperliquid.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like a voluntary addition to a node. It's not like it's required or part of the Solana software. So as you guys are kind of like getting more adoption, how does the like kind of those plugins work? Like how does I don't know, the user experience of this stuff, if like say only 5% of the network has it versus 90, kind of can you explain kind of what the adoption of this would look like for users?
Yeah. So for users, this software will be completely transparent. So they won't even know it's there if they don't want to. It shouldn't really impact their experience as far as like sending transactions. You don't have to like send transactions to a special place or anything. It's all kind of just magic behind the scenes. So yeah, it's like the amount of stake. And I guess you kind of have to bootstrap the network effects, which is what we ran into with Jito Solana. You know, we basically released Jito Solana in like 2022. And it was like 2 weeks before, it was right before Breakpoint, 2 weeks before this like brutal bear market that anyone here, I'm sure you were here around during that time. It was just like nothing was happening on chain. And we spent a lot of time growing the network effects of that, trying to pitch this like more efficient system for Solana that would reduce spam and make validators more money. I think we were pretty successful for that. We've generated like a few $1 billion. I think I can't remember off the top of my head, but generated like over $1 billion of extra value for validators and helped the network run more efficiently. And so those bootstrapping things of like reaching out to all the validators, getting them to run it, that will be, we have a lot of experience with that. And a lot of the validators we've talked to are pretty excited about BAM, just kind of unlocking this new space for design that isn't really possible in other chains. So that will get bootstrapped, and then like the network effects I think they'll happen pretty fast, given the level of excitement that we'll have. And that's really when the value for the plugins in like the functionality in here really starts to gain a lot of weight. So if people, like let's say if you're a market maker or a DEX or something and you want to prioritize market makers over takers, then you can start to build out that functionality, and that will just provide very, very deep liquidity, very small spreads for users. So that just means more like better pricing for users. And BAM is really I would say the key kind of departure from the past of what we've done is like previously we were kind of just focused on MEV. So I guess when people think of MEV, they typically think of like arbitrage, liquidations, and like other forms of sequencing that are kind of for like trader and searcher heavy. And this is really for applications, users, and institutions. So the goal is like, if we can make spreads even tighter and have people, if there's even more liquidity and deeper liquidity on Solana, then it'll benefit users, it'll benefit applications, and hopefully we can start to see a lot more people trading on Solana, especially institutions. I think they are coming pretty fast, especially with a lot of the regulatory work going on. And I think they're getting ready to trade on chain, and they want to understand how it works. They want to make sure that they're giving their users best execution, and that their users are getting the best pricing that they can. So BAM kind of aims to do a lot of that better than what's available today.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. How do you think about like incentivizing validators? You said the validators that you've talked to are very excited. Like, what are the incentives for them to kind of use this, and maybe why would they not want to use this?
Yeah, so incentives for using this, I think that we'll be able to. We spend a lot of time kind of thinking about schedulers, and there will be like a base scheduler in here that we're pretty optimistic will be pretty high rewarding. So Yeah, for those that aren't familiar, like Agave has a few different schedulers that you can use. FireDancer has a few different schedulers that you can use that kind of try to optimize things a little differently. This system will have another version that we think will be pretty solid. And then I would say another one is like the validators on Solana are pretty long-term focused. I would say most of them, they don't necessarily want to like max extract from the network. They want to make sure they're providing a lot of value for applications. And applications are ultimately the ones that make blockchain successful. So I think if we can prove that, I think we will be able to prove that BAM will make applications more successful and bring more users on chain, then I think that will be a good selling point for them. As far as why they might not want to run it, I think there's still some details that are being figured out, and they might want to wait for more clarity on those details. So like specific plugin implementations, there's a lot of questions around plugins specifically that we're trying to work through right now. So like I put out a forum post last week about potential ACE plugin design that we're getting a lot of good feedback from applications on and market makers on. So yeah, I would say like there's some that are probably more on the cutting edge that are willing to run newer software to try things out to see if it makes the network better. And then there's some that they need to be like super reliable and they don't necessarily want to experiment because they have a lot of stake or, you know, whatever the reason is. So yeah, I think those are kind of like the few things that come to mind as far as like why you might not want to run it.
That totally makes sense. If you have a lot of stake, you don't want to kind of risk it until you could totally understand what's going on. So yeah. Kind of one part of what you guys are working on is that it's verifiable about how these validators choose things, and it creates kind of a new layer of like differentiation because validators can have different plugins. Like, how do you think that the transparency of this stuff will change how stake moves, how people prioritize where they put their stake, and kind of, what landscape do you kind of see coming up from that?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, one of the main features of this is transparency. So in like the near future, all the code will be open source for the software, and I'll try to keep it high level here because I like going in the weeds. But basically, another feature that TEs provide that BAM will run on is they call them attestations. So you can verify that a specific version of software is running. Right now, if I like send a transaction to a validator, I don't really know what's running, or they can say they're running one thing, but they're running something else. Like, oh, I don't have any mods, but you don't really know. And the thing with TEs is that they provide attestations, which is basically like this image hash is running on this TE, and I have this cryptographic signature from the TE saying that it's running. So you'll be able to see that's running. I think a lot of apps, especially ones that run validators, will be pretty excited about this. So we might see some more stake going to those if they support it earlier on. And then, I would say the user experience on Solana is already great. Like if you use it, it's pretty fast. Transactions confirm pretty fast. This is just like another upgrade on its path to becoming the most dominant L1.
Yeah. And so what kind of like activity do you see after there's like a broader adoption of BAM kind of drying up on the chain, like sandwiching or maybe other stuff, and kind of what activity do you kind of see like proliferating as a cause of this?
Yeah. I think we're pretty hopeful that it will mitigate a lot of the sandwiching. It's really hard to do attribution on this. And if you've been following along with Solana, there's a website called sandwich.me where you can see the sandwich rates for different validators. That's one kind of way to attribute it is like Ghost data. People have like in-house tools that they use, but things are getting like pretty, it's such a small amount of stake, but things are definitely getting a little darker as far as like being able to track where that's happening at. So with BAM, like it'll be super transparent. It will basically say like, hey, the BAM node sequenced these transactions in this order. In the validator, you can look at that final block and just compare the two and be like, oh, like this thing got sandwiched and BAM didn't see that. Like, where did that come from? So yeah, I think that's one thing we'll kind of see mitigated. Two is just like people will be able to understand and like have very high guarantees around the way that their transactions are ordered, which is pretty important for professional market makers knowing what's going on. And so yeah, I think hopefully we'll see more professional market makers on chain that are quoting tighter than they are today with deeper liquidity. And yeah, I think we'll see a lot of applications. We've been getting a ton of inbounds from applications, applications that are already on Solana that are trading focused, and even those that are on different chains that want to consider coming to Solana, and they're like super interested in BAM because it provides them a feature set that they can't get on the chain that they're on today. So yeah, I think we'll see a lot more like trading intensive applications coming on Solana. And ultimately that will just give users better pricing.
Yeah, that's exciting. Like having tighter spreads and all that stuff. So like kind of the two use cases that you guys put out in your initial blog post were the cancel orders and then the Oracle kind of updating only when needed. What are some like less intuitive use cases of BAM that you guys kind of are thinking about?
Yeah, I think the just-in-time Oracle stuff's pretty interesting. I would say there's a lot of other cool stuff that you could do with BAM that you could previously do in like a more centralized context, but this makes it a little more decentralized. So one thing that we've kind of brainstormed is like being able to pay fees in any token. So basically allowing people to pay fees in like Jito, Bonk, USDC, Fartcoin, whatever. That's kind of like something that I think would be pretty interesting, especially for new people on Solana. I mean, the user experience is like so good now when you onboard. It's likely you're dropped a little soul in there, but I think anyone that's like run out of gas on some chain has kind of realized the struggle of like, how do I get SOL on here? I got to go on a SEX and wait a few days for my money to get on there and withdraw. Yeah, if you have other assets on chain, being able to pay for transaction fees and other assets is pretty interesting. Yeah, what else? There's potentially some other like transaction primitives that you might be able to use. We're still scoping this out a little bit, but and I'm kind of just like brainstorming here, so this isn't necessarily anything that we're going to build here. But like one thing right now is getting sub-slot, like less than one slot TTL on order, like trades is pretty difficult. You either have to like do some crazy nonce stuff or like combine nonces and block hashes and stuff like that. And so like basically the smallest granularity of what you can say transaction you want to live for is like one slot. So like I want it to land on slot 400. So one thing I've been thinking about a little bit is what if you could say like I want to land in the first half of slot 400, or I want to land in the next like 20 milliseconds. Otherwise like cancel my transaction. So yeah, there's like interesting stuff like that I think we can start to explore once it gets a little more stake. And those types of things open up a lot of other questions that we need to answer to. But yeah, there's some of that stuff, and then there's some ideas that people have kind of been sending us that are pretty interesting, that are like kind of trading adjacent. So yeah, I think it'll be pretty cool to see like what people come up with. And yeah, hopefully we can just like kind of, the goal is to like give people a consistent experience across Solana in one that they understand, but also allow for innovation to happen. Like what can we build for the network that's super useful that can be like applied to the network pretty quickly. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that you could do.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the gas fee thing. Yeah, and I'm sure once you kind of give developers like access to this, there'll be interesting things that you never even thought of.
Yeah.
So one thing that is kind of like important about this is the attestations. Like, can you talk about how like a person would independently verify these attestations themselves and kind of know that like, or like be 100% sure that the validator using the software is producing the blocks in the way that they say they are?
Yeah. So we're still in the process of building this out, but it'll look something like there's a way to get attestations inside the TE. So I can say I'm running this software, and basically we would embed that in a certificate that happens when you send a transaction. So you can send a transaction to, if you like really care about this, you can basically send a transaction to one of the BAM nodes, and it will have the attestation in the Quick certificate. And Quick's just what people use to send transactions on Solana. And so, yeah, you'll be able to basically say, I sent a transaction to this Quick server, it gave me this attestation. There will be a list of approved or like known attestations by Jito somewhere. So you'll basically be able to check against that. And then on the other end, between like the BAM node and the validator, there will be some basically data saying that like this validator was connected to BAM at this time. And the BAM node will save everything that it like sent to different validators too. So you'll be able to say like, okay, Jack here sent a transaction to buy Fartcoin, and it went through like this BAM node, and then it went to this validator at this slot, and then it landed on chain.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And are you relying on the like until you guys are open source, you're still kind of relying on the Jito software or the BAM software itself for getting these attestations, correct?
Yeah. So we're still in development. We are the only people running it on mainnet today and testnet, and we're gonna spin up testnet pretty soon here. And so, yeah, one of the things on our to-do list that we've kind of designed it out, we just haven't had the capacity to do it yet, is the actual attestations. So there will be, you'll be able to see that hopefully within the next few weeks on testnet, and then like very, very early mainnet runs. There'll be a list of like known attestations by Jito that you'll be able to look at as well.
Awesome. So one reason that I was like really interested in BAM was like I was looking at Hyperliquid and I was like, shoot, like how's Solana gonna compete with this? Like their applications can just build the blockchain kind of how they want it to, and this seems like a really cool thing. And I was kind of thinking like now, how do you kind of see Solana kind of competing versus app chains? Do you still think there's like edge that these app chains have, and like where do you see that compared to like execution or other things on Solana?
Yeah. I think this does change the value of app chains a little bit. I mean, one of the main values of app chains is like being able to control the actual execution and sequencing. So now with BAM applications, we will do that. And it's basically transparent with the network. Like people don't even know it's there if they don't want to. You kind of get this best of both worlds where like you have all the L1 activity going on, and there's some basically like normal scheduler that's running, and then for the applications that want to opt in, they can opt into one of the forms of the ACE plugins to enable that. And so, I mean, we're already getting messages from teams that were considering building app chains to build on BAM. So I think that kind of shows that it's there's a lot of excitement around it from some applications. Yeah, I think there's like this whole value narrative, like, this specific application that's doing well, they're just going to spin out their own app chain or their own L2 or something. But I think people like pretty severely underestimate the amount of effort that goes into that. Yeah, you gotta you either have to like build your own validator client or you like fork Solana or something. You have to have like a whole audit and bug bounty program for it. If the code base that you forked has a bug, how do you get notified of that? Like if there's some bug in the Solana code base and you fork that, how do you know to like fix that and fix it silently? You have to have incentives for people to run all the validators. You gotta like talk to the exchanges and hook into their software so they can track balances coming in and out of the exchanges. You need wallets. Like I could go on, but it's like a pretty massive burden when you actually start to lay it out. So Solana already has all the integrations into all the sexes, all the wallets, and so yeah, I think there's definitely benefits to just staying on Solana as opposed to building out your own app chain.
Yeah, and I think this will really contribute to that like further.
I hope so.
So are you guys charging fees on BAM, or how does that work? How are you guys collecting money from this, or are you not?
Yeah, there will be some fees associated with it. I think those will be released pretty shortly, at least our current thought on it. And there'll be ecosystem advisor committee to help figure out kind of what's reasonable for that. The goal of this is like really it's an ecosystem project. So we want people building on top of it. We want people using it. We want to build stuff that's useful for the network. And so we need some help with that, and we don't necessarily want to be the only one calling the shot. So the ecosystem advisor committee that will be assembled at some point in the near future will kind of help figure out those questions.
Yeah, that sounds like a great way to do it. So what's kind of on the horizon for you guys? What's kind of coming up next in terms of BAM's roadmap?
Yeah. So yeah, it's currently the client's been audited by a few parties. The getting notifications on like bug fixes that are coming in. Testnet will be rolling out pretty soon here. I think maybe hopefully this week, but that's like a CEO timeline, not an engineering timeline. So we'll see if that gets met. But yeah, my team's gonna be watching this like shit. So yeah, we're gonna roll out testnet, and then we're doing a lot of testing and kind of like final tweaking on a lot of stuff before we go to mainnet. So we want to make sure it's rock solid, it's performing well, making some like final tweaks to scheduling algorithms and other pieces of the subsystem. And hopefully we'll be on mainnet within the next few weeks here. And yeah, from there it'll like, we're hoping to grow the amount of stake on it. We're already talking to applications and like market makers and traders about what kind of features they want, so we can start to kind of figure those out and spec those out. So I think that will kind of be happening in parallel. And then obviously like getting the BAM node audited and open sourced and all that will come as well. And so yeah, hopefully in a few months from now, like a lot of stakes running it, and there's a lot of applications that are using the features in it, and everyone, the apps and the users just have a better user experience and can kind of help us compete with some of the other more opinionated chains.
Cool. Switching the topic a little bit to you, like how did you first get involved in crypto, and kind of what was the moment you decided that like this was something that you wanted to do full time?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think 2017 was my first cycle. I kind of got in from like the speculation angle. Yeah, the amount of like tokens, I mean, every day there's probably more tokens. There's probably like 10 times as many tokens launched today as there was in the entire market in 2017. So things were like way more concentrated. Things were just like running hard, and got into like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin, and Ripple, and all that stuff. Kind of just like playing around from the investment angle. At the time, my background's in computer engineering, so doing like firmware engineering and embedded systems and stuff like that. Yeah, I was kind of doing my day job, doing this on the side, like, just kind of messing around. And yeah, stayed with the kind of like followed the market a little bit. 2018, 2019, discovered MEV in 2020, went down the rabbit hole, And that was my first time actually programming. It's like, hey, I program and like build systems for a living. Let's like try this out. So I did that on Ethereum for a little bit. And yeah, I kind of just started thinking like, okay, this is pretty cool. There's a lot of cool problems to work on. It's like anyone can join. And the amount of like I didn't come from a financial background. I came from like I was doing robotics and self-driving robotics and stuff like that before. Yeah, at that time in Ethereum in like 2020, 2021, the amount of money that was going through the like Ethereum blockchain was just pretty insane. A lot of people trading meme coins or trading DeFi tokens. And I thought that was pretty interesting that there's just like this software that runs that no one can stop, that's just recording all this value, and people are just sending all this money permissionlessly. So yeah, I fell down that rabbit hole, and then discovered Solana. I did the hackathon, and I was like, okay, I gotta quit my job. I gotta go on my own and do something. So yeah, my dad is he owns his own business, and I guess kind of got some of the entrepreneurship from him in some sense. So yeah, met my co-founder, decided to start Jito, and yeah, I kind of just been grinding since.
That's awesome. So it's interesting to see how kind of people get to where they are in crypto.
Yeah, definitely like the engineering point for me. Like I just love working on code and systems and thinking about them. So it was mostly just like engineering. Like this is pretty cool from a technical standpoint.
Kind of zooming out from not necessarily what you're working on at Jito, what things in like the crypto ecosystem like have you really excited? Yeah, I guess other than what you're specifically working on.
Yeah. I would say a lot of the Solana technical stuff is pretty interesting as far as trying to make the network faster, trying to make the block size bigger, understanding like I'm not in the weeds as much as the core team, like Andrew and Alessandro and those guys, but understanding where the bottlenecks are and fixing those I think is pretty interesting. I think a lot of the deep end stuff is still kind of slept on, specifically the like wireless network ones like Helium and XNet and Hive Mapper. Those are just like really cool physical instantiations of crypto that I think that it's easy to get caught up in like the speculation and the meme coin trading and all that, but like seeing these crypto protocols in like physical form and seeing them interact with the physical world is super cool. Whether it's like mapping construction zones or figuring out like where stop signs and stoplights and what the speed limit is on different pieces of road to like providing decentralized cellular service in stadiums. Yeah, that stuff's pretty interesting. Yeah, what else? I would say the another thing is, I guess, worth mentioning is just all the institutional stuff. I feel like the environment in the US specifically has changed a lot in the past like 9 months, and just the like conversations that are being had, I couldn't even imagine those being had like a year or two ago. So like we went to the SEC office to talk about liquid staking and Solana. Like that was pretty surreal. Going to the crypto ball and like meeting senators and these other people that are like they really understand it and they really want to see it succeed, to like all the news from the past few weeks out of the SEC, Hester Peirce, like Bo Hines and David Sachs and the Crypto Council. That's just going to bring in a lot of capital and a lot of stable coins. And I think that's just going to be so big. It's going to provide a lot of legitimacy to the space, bring in a lot of capital, spread the dollar. And yeah, I think that stuff's like pretty cool. But you also can't forget the like the whole reason this started too is pretty important. So definitely don't get lost in that.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy how fast things have shifted. It's almost like unrecognizable that, like, I don't know, companies were getting sued randomly by the SEC like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
What do you think, like, from your vantage point, what do you think are some like unique perspectives you have that other people in the space might not understand because they're not doing what you're doing?
That's a good question. Unique advantage points. I would say I definitely learned a lot about growing teams and running companies. Like making mistakes, making good bets, like building good teams, trying to find people that are like really excited about what you're doing, and kind of like almost building like a cult in some sense. Like if people are going to be working their ass off, you need them to be really bought into it. And then, yeah, I would say we kind of play an interesting role where we get to talk to a lot of applications, and I think that puts us in an interesting spot where if you are working on like the core L1 software, you are like pretty heads down. Or I mean, this isn't for everyone, but there's a lot of the core devs. They're maybe not super in touch with what the applications are doing, how people are using the chain, maybe criticisms or comments on like how to make things better. And I feel like we are kind of in an interesting spot just from not only like the Jito Sol angle, but like the restaking and people using Jito's infra and all that. Yeah, I would say like people are, we kind of have an interesting view where we're just seeing a lot of different stuff at Jito, where a lot of people are like just focused on their application or just focused on the L1 infra.
Yeah, it's kind of a great position to be in because all these apps are kind of talking to you guys. What kind of things do you like, or like assertions or kind of beliefs you have about the crypto market that are like, I guess, contradictory and like, or maybe like different from how other people see it that you think are like correct?
Oh man, that's a good one. I feel like the first one I thought of is like, I think the lines between centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges is going to blur, and it's going to be more decentralized. I don't know what this is going to look like exactly, but if you think about like people, like you can get pretty good prices on Solana today with a lot of these prop AMMs. So access to really deep liquidity has gotten really good on Solana in the past like 8 or 9 months. And then there's just an insane number of assets being created on chain. And I think like the sexes just can't really keep up with that. Like, if you try to go get listed on like a Binance or Coinbase or any other sex, it's like a very long process, a lot of due diligence and all that. And a lot of price discovery for other assets is happening on chain. So like, if you kind of think about, if you're like Coinbase or some other centralized exchange, like there's probably people are maybe starting to use these blockchains more. And I think you would be silly if you're not thinking about like, how do we get access to some of how do we get our customers like better access to decentralized exchanges? I mean, we kind of saw this with like Base, like Coinbase making the Base play, and trying to integrate Base into a lot more of what they're doing and trying to make it easier for users to access Base. So yeah, that's kind of the first one that comes to mind, is like the lines between sexes and dexes are going to blur.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really good insight to end this with. Thank you for coming on and sharing what you're working on at Jito, BAM, and kind of a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me.